Hello everyone and welcome to another vlog, an extra one this week. As you can see, I am still in Derbyshire. This is the last day of our holiday here. I'm here with my mum and we've been having a fabulous time. In my last vlog, you'll have seen our adventures so far, going to Chatsworth House and then going to Stoke-on-Trent and the Burley factory and the Emma Bridgewater factory there. It's all been so much fun and we also love Derbyshire. We're having a wonderful time exploring the area a little bit. We're staying in Cromford, which is a really charming little town and famous for its connection to Alison Utley, one of my favourite writers. So we've been having so much fun, and today I'm very excited because we're going to a bookshop in Cromford that I've been wanting to go to for years and years and years. It's got a bit of a strange name. I think it's called something like Scarthin Books, and it's meant to have 13 rooms of books, and I think it's meant to have a nice little cafe as well, and I just can't wait to go there and browse all the books. And yes, I'm sure it will be fabulous, so I'm also looking forward to bringing you along with us. It's a bit of a grey, gloomy day out. I think it's quite rainy today, so it's a good day to be inside, book shopping, book browsing, and yes, in one of my happy places for sure. So I'm going to get ready and then take you along. Let's go book shopping. So we're just back from Scarthin Books. We had a fabulous time. It was the most amazing bookshop, and we came away with quite a few bags actually of books, but I'm not going to do a book haul here because, as you can see, the light's really gone now. It's quite dark and it's harder to film the books nicely when I don't have natural light. So I'm going to wait and do the book haul once we're back home. We're leaving fairly early tomorrow morning. Well, we have to leave the property quite early, but then I think we're going for breakfast and things like that before driving home. So I'll show you the books we got once I'm actually home. Mum absolutely loved the bookshop too. She sent me up all these step ladders, kind of looking at the very tops where a lot of the vintage ones were. But we did find some treasures, and it was really reasonable as well. Some really good bargains there. So yes, if you're ever in the area, then Scarthin Books in Cromford is definitely well worth going to. And the staff were lovely. They told us where the farm, like the house that Alison Utley talks about in The Country Child, they told us kind of where we could find it. So we set off for a little explore. We couldn't actually drive up the track, but we saw the house from the road at the bottom of the hill, and that was really exciting for both of us. So yeah, the staff at the bookshop were really lovely and really helpful. So that was fabulous. Back home now, just having a cup of tea. Should really start packing a bit. We've got a dinner booking for tonight at just a local pub that's meant to be good. So looking forward to that, but probably should start trying to pack a little bit. Mum's just here. She's writing postcards. Hello.
Hello everyone. Hello, yes I am. One of the very nice things about Landmark Trust is they always give you a little supply of postcards, and I suddenly thought, we're leaving in the morning, I better write them now so we can post them when we walk down to have supper tonight.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to start getting busy now before we have supper. I'm going to finish my cup of tea first, actually, and then I'll start doing some of the packing, getting things organised so we can leave early tomorrow morning. It's been such a wonderful stay, though. I really have enjoyed this so much. It really makes me want to come back to Derbyshire too, because there's just so much to explore around here, I can really tell. Anyway, I better get going. So it's Friday morning now. We've packed up and moved out of our Landmark Trust place, which was such a lovely place to stay, wasn't it?
It was really lovely. Couldn't have enjoyed it more.
No, it was really fabulous. And we're having breakfast at, do you remember what the tea room is called?
Edensaw.
Edensaw, something like Edensaw Tea Room, which has been recommended to us. So we booked it for breakfast, and it's near Chatsworth, in one of the little villages like on the estate. It's very pretty around here.
It is. I think this is where actually Deborah was buried. Was the church right here? So
okay, that's interesting. So we're just about to go in and have breakfast, and then we'll be heading back to Yorkshire, but we might stop in Bakewell itself first. Anyway, I'm quite hungry.
Yes, so am I. We'll go have breakfast.
Hello everyone, so I'm back in Yorkshire now and looking forward to sharing my book haul from Scarton Books with you. It's a few days later. We drove back on Friday. We kind of went through Bakewell after we'd had breakfast, and we had been thinking of stopping in Bakewell, but the weather wasn't great. It was quite grey and gloomy, and we decided to just get home as quickly as possible because I also wanted to unpack and get organised on the Friday, because I've spent the weekend working on my first video about our trip to Derbyshire, which hopefully if you're watching this you'll have seen that video that went up on Sunday. I also worked on editing an author interview that went up on my blog on Monday. I interviewed the author Oriel Bishop about her book Christmas is Coming. And if you fancy a lovely festive listen, then I do recommend tuning into our conversation. Oriel was such a joy to chat to. I'm a big fan of this anthology, which is a bit unusual because it actually starts in the autumn and it celebrates kind of festivals and special days throughout the autumn. And then there's a kind of daily delight all through December where she shares poetry and quotes and ideas for little crafts and recipes and things like that. So it's a really charming book. Oriel told me that she wrote the book as a kind of carol to the memory of her mother, because her mother really loved Christmas and made it very special. And that really sort of touched my heart. So yes, if you fancy a festive listen, either before Christmas or in the lovely quiet period after Christmas, then do check this out on my blog. And also, I'll probably be trying to share my interview with Simon Thomas, who is the consultant for the British Library Women Writers series. And we had a fabulous chat all about the British Library Women Writers books, which I'm a big fan of. We specifically had a little chat about their latest anthology, Stories for Winter and Nights by the Fire. I just love that title. I really enjoyed this anthology, but it was great to chat with Simon and hear about his absolute favourites from the whole collection of the Women Writers series, and like which book he really wishes he could get published and all sorts of things like that. So if you fancy some nice listening over the Christmas holidays, then you can check out these interviews. I'm going to try and get this interview up before I break for Christmas, which I must confess I'm looking forward to, and I hope you all have wonderful holidays ahead as well. But let's get on with the book haul, because Scarthin Books, as I'm sure you've seen from the clips I videoed there, it's just amazing, and it's a wonderful mix of new books as well as secondhand books. And what I love about their secondhand book range is that there's a great mix of prices, and a lot of the books are actually very fairly priced and really good value. So I found some real bargains that I was thrilled about. This is one that I picked up. It's the Cambridge Book of Poetry for Children, edited by Kenneth Grahame. I remember reading about Kenneth Grahame, really enjoying this project when I read his biography earlier in 2023. So I was happy to see it, and I couldn't resist picking it up, especially as it's got woodcut illustrations by Gwen Ravarat, and I always admire her artwork so much. I love that one with a family gathered around a fire. I think that's lovely. So I was just really pleased to spot this, and I do love a good poetry anthology. So yes, I was very happy with that. And then I don't know if any of you know Seven Little Australians, which is a book I read when I was very young, and I absolutely sobbed my heart out over it. It has a very sad ending that came as a shock to me as a child, and I've never read it since. Actually, I was a bit traumatized by that ending, and I still just remember crying my little heart out over it. And then at Scarthin Books I saw this, which I think is a later one in the series. It's called The Family at Misrule, and it's by Ethel Turner, who wrote Seven Little Australians. And I just picked it up because I'm kind of curious to maybe give it a read sometime and see what I think of this one. So yeah, I was really happy to find that. And then I couldn't resist some vintage Louisa May Alcott. Obviously we're doing Little Women, the Comfort Book Club discussion of that is going up this Friday. I'm excited about that. And at Scarthin, Mum and I spotted this really nice old edition of Jo's Boys by Louisa M. Alcott, and then also this nice edition of Little Women. And I don't have a real vintage edition of Little Women. That's something I've always wanted. This was really reasonably priced, but it's got some lovely illustrations in it. I think that they're very attractive, and I just love the old-fashioned feel to this book, which is so appropriate for an old-fashioned book like Little Women. And yeah, I was just really happy to find this because I have wanted a vintage edition, and I just think this one is quite charming. They can be quite expensive too, so I was really happy to find a very reasonable one. And then I love the poems and stories for children, especially, that Eleanor Fargen wrote. And I was so thrilled to find this copy of Martin Pippin in the Apple Orchard by her. It is pretty tatty, as you can see. This dust wrapper essentially doesn't really work anymore. It's not really there anymore. But it's got these lovely end papers, and it's got some really beautiful illustrations, which is one of the reasons why I got it. And I seem to unfortunately keep finding illustrations with nude figures in it, but here's another one, a little more decent. This is a children's book, by the way, as was that poetry anthology. So, I don't quite know what's happening with this, but never mind. And this is illustrated by C.E. Brock, and I adore his illustrations. He did a lot of the Jane Austen novels, of course, and yes, I was just really happy. And look at the gold edged pages. I think that's just so lovely. So it's not in the best shape, but I'm just really pleased to have such a gorgeous copy anyway, and those illustrations make it very special for me. And then I remember how much I loved the Mrs. Pepperpot books when I was little, and this is one that I just picked up very cheaply. It was £3, and I like the dust wrapper and everything, so I was just happy to get this again. I don't have the Mrs. Pepperpot books anymore, so it was nice to just pick up one when I saw it. I did get some Alison Utley, which of course I had to, as Cromford, where Scartham Books is just famed for its Alison Utley collection. I got this one of Squirrel Goes Skating, which I don't have, so I was really happy to get that. I got a few Sam Pig paperbacks. Again, these were just really inexpensive, and I don't have the Sam Pig ones, and I thought these puffin ones were quite attractive. So Sam Pig Goes to the Seaside, Adventures of Sam Pig, and Sam Pig at the Circus. So I got those. I was really thrilled to find a first edition of Saplings by Noel Stratfield. This is a Persephone book, but when I see a first edition by a favourite author that's really reasonably priced, it's hard for me to resist. So I picked this one up and I was thrilled with that. Then I always look out for the old green Viragos, and I found one that I didn't already have, which is this one, Tell Me a Riddle by Tilly Olsen. I thought that sounded really good, so I picked that up. And then I also am always on the lookout for the paperbacks that were done in this series by Bloomsbury. They did quite a few books that I really like in this sort of format. All the covers look essentially the same, but they're different colours. They did Mrs. Tim of the Regiment by D. Stevenson in this series. They did Henrietta's War, which is another favourite of mine. And they did Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, for instance. This is one I didn't have, A Kid for Two Farthings by Wolf Mankiewicz, and I thought that sounded like it would be interesting. And also I just like a lot of the others in this sort of series that they did, so I wanted to give it a try. Unfortunately, I don't think these are in print anymore, so I do tend to look for them secondhand. Oh, and then I was so pleased to spy this. Actually, Mum spotted this. It was right up high on a shelf above a lot of bookcases. We love the illustrations of John Goodall, who did the Miss Read books. He illustrated so many of those so beautifully. And I have his Edwardian Christmas in this series. This one is Above and Below Stairs, and it tells the story from like the Middle Ages to the present day of people living above and below stairs. And I just really love the books in these series. The Edwardian Christmas is a lovely one too. And his illustrations are just exquisite. And this one has like little flaps that show you the contrast between above stairs and below stairs, for instance. So I was really happy to get that. I did get one new book. All of these so far have all been secondhand, but I did get a new book, which this just shows why it's so nice to browse in a bookshop, because I hadn't known that this book was out, but I am a fan of Lane. They used to do a knitting magazine. I'm not sure if they do it anymore, but I have one of their books, and this one I thought looked really good too. It's 52 Weeks of Easy Knits. And I really am inspired by so many of the patterns in here. There are lots of sort of scarves and jumpers that I'd really like to try to knit, although I am still such a beginner. I'm probably, being a bit too adventurous, but one of my goals for the next few years or so is to learn to knit a bit more and be able to do more complicated things. I've really only ever done scarves and things like that before. So I thought this was really inspiring, and I love the patterns. Often I don't really like a lot of patterns in knitting books, but there were so many in this one I thought would be lovely to knit and hopefully to wear. So yes, I was really pleased to spot that. I did also get a Persephone book. One thing that was nice was Scarth and Books give out sort of vouchers that are like loyalty kind of points, I guess, you earn when you shop from them. And I used a voucher to get, or to go towards at least, a new a new to me Persephone book, one that I didn't have, which is Dinners for Beginners by Rachel and Margaret Ryan. I have so many of the Persephone books already. I'm kind of working slowly on completing that collection, and the ones I tend to not have so much still are a lot of the kind of cookbooks. And I started reading this one a bit and was actually really enjoying it. I think it was first published in the 1930s. But in some ways, a lot of the advice is still quite relevant to beginning cooks today. So, and I just liked the tone to it. It was easy to read. So I picked this one up and I've been enjoying it so far. And as always, there are nice end papers and matching bookmark, which is so lovely. So that was the other new book I got. Then I found a secondhand folio book, which I was thrilled to get. For a really good price as well. This is A Time of Gifts by Patrick Leigh Fermor. I think he's such a brilliant non-fiction writer, and I love this folio edition. I've seen it before in secondhand bookshops, but it's always been quite expensive. But I think this was £10. Yes, it was, which I thought was a really good price. So I was thrilled to get that one. And then one more book, which you'll know why I couldn't resist this one. So I spotted A Gentleman Publisher's Commonplace book. This is John Murray's Commonplace book. And you know how much I love commonplace books. I've created some for you, all of my seasonal commonplace books, of which the most recent one is, of course, my Christmas commonplace book. I'll put a link to that again in the show notes if you haven't got it yet. But commonplace books are just filled with quotes and sayings and maybe snippets of overheard conversations, but little things that just strike your fancy. And I do love a good commonplace book, and I've been enjoying reading this one already. There are lots of mainly very short entries, but I really like reading this type of thing and picking up some great quotes and things like that. It's also always interesting to read what someone else has noted in their commonplace book. So I just always find that really interesting. And yes, I was just really pleased to, again, pick this up for a real bargain. So I did really well at Scarth and Books. I hope you enjoyed having a bit of a tour of the bookshop. If you're ever in the area, it's so worth visiting. It's so lovely. I know Mum and I are tempted to try to go back, even if just for the day, because we could, I think, manage that. And it's just such an amazing bookshop. I can't recommend it highly enough. So that was such a highlight of our trip to Derbyshire. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for the lovely comments and To everyone who pressed the super thanks button on my last video, I'm glad you've enjoyed sort of coming along, so to speak, on this excursion to Derbyshire and to Staffordshire with us. But yes, I will be back on Friday for the Little Women Comfort Book Club discussion, for those of you who are going to tune in and watch that. For everyone else, I'm going to wish you now a very Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays and a fantastic start to 2024. I will be back kind of mid-January time on YouTube, taking a slightly extended break in January because I've worked longer than usual in December and I need a lot of time to kind of reflect and think about next year for myself. But I look forward to seeing you back again in January if I don't for the Comfort Book Club discussion. Take care. Goodbye.